What's going on, party people in the house? It is Friday, 6 days before Christmas. How's your week been? Hey, we've got clearly much to discuss today. We still just have to discuss what has happened with the firing of Pete K, the hiring of Will Muschamp. That happened yesterday. By the way, Dwayne Aquina just gets lost in the shuffle, right? We just gloss over the Dwayne Aquina thing. So much for the return of DBU. So we got that. Steve Sarkisian, we've got him having a press conference at 11:15 Central this morning, which is somewhat out of the blue, unexpected. Steve Sarkisian was not supposed to speak to the media until probably December 27th. They're supposed to fly up, maybe the 26th. They're supposed to fly into Orlando on the 26th. That's when the teams arrive, Michigan and Texas. So I think Sark was going to do like a quick, the thing where they like get off the plane and they got the band playing or something like that. And he's like, so glad to be here at the whatever bowl, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like a 6-7 minute thing and then it's done. And more of a formal press conference the next day. But UT decided that Steve Sarkisian is going to talk to the media today. So for all of us who have kids in school, welcome to my world. So we got Sark talking. We got to talk more about Pete K and the Muschamp thing. And then, of course, there's playoff games tonight. At least Oklahoma and Alabama is playing tonight. So some of you guys will be hate watching that. I'm ignoring the chat. So listen, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button if you have not done so. Hit the like just for the video. I appreciate it. We have now eclipsed 200,000, and we're really excited about that. And so that's because of people like you and all the support that y'all give us. So please continue to like and support the channel. I'm going to do a quick retweet right here, and then we're going to get this party started because the question really becomes. The question becomes as we sit here and we're absorbing this thing, it's a day later, not necessarily 24 hours later, but it's a day later for what was pretty much an unexpected move. The question that people are having, the things that people want to discuss is, and happy early birthday to you, by the way, to you, Stephanie. And hold on, I saw a super chat that just came in. And the question becomes, was this a panic move by Sarkisian? Was this a move of panic by him? And I think there's a lot of questions as relates to that. That's going to be the thesis of the show. Is this Steve Sarkisian make a panic move? A move that is showing that, hey, Sark is feeling pressure and potential desperation heading into 2026. Now, what's interesting, if y'all watch this show, which a lot of y'all do, I can see y'all in the chat who I know y'all watch every single day. Y'all know what I've said since the end of the season. And I've said this very consistently, right? And so what we saw yesterday or since the season has ended, really kind of coincides with what I've said and believed and written about, which is at the end of the day, Steve Sarkisian cannot go 9-3 for 2 straight years. More importantly, they can't miss the playoffs for 2 straight years. Like, no matter what you wrapped your head around as relates to why Texas is not in the playoffs tonight or on January 1st, I think that's what the games are. I'll be honest with you, I ain't looked. I ain't looked. I don't know where those other games are. I'm like, man, I don't care what they doing. I don't care. I'm assuming it's January 1st. I'm just salty about the whole damn thing, right? So, but we know at the end of the day, you've got it. Your season, your success is defined at Texas at this point, whether you make the playoffs or not. It just is what it is, right? And so when any season you don't make the playoffs, it's a failure of a season. There's moral victories to be had. It doesn't mean that there's there's nothing good to ascertain from this, right? But at the end of the day, you can't go from, and there's no way to sugarcoat being entering the season as the number one team by the AP and the coaches poll. So don't just put that on the media. The coaches did it too. Now, some people may say, well, the SID voted for that. Well, not every SID voted, right? But as the favorite to win the national championship and then end up being out of the playoffs. So we understand that no matter what Sark was saying, and he started talking about, hey, we got a chance to have our first, 3 consecutive 10-win seasons since blah, 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 blah. We're like, man, I don't even. The fact that I'm not even comprehending that, because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters, right, is going to be your playoff records, right? And that's what matters. Like everything else is just ego. That's just ego. That's for yourself. But that ain't for us. That's not for the fans. That's not for anybody else. We know what really matters. Okay, like the games that are being played tonight. Okay, so man, I don't even know what that word is, Lawrence. What's up, Lawrence? I don't even know what is this crap that what is? Stop using big words. I went to public school. Use smaller words. Speaking of, let's do Josh in the super chat. Let's do Josh in the super chat. He goes 10-30, 19-22 with a backup, 10-35 at UGA. Doesn't sound like an elite DC to me. Josh, I hear you. The question really becomes, Josh, and what we don't know, at this moment is, some people are better suited for that role as a DC. Like Charlie Strong was better suited for a role as a DC than he ever was as a head coach, right? And so you see Charlie's found his place as a position coach. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't think Will Muschamp is a good coach. I'm not going to sit here and say that, right? I'm not going to sit there. What I will say, and I'll go back to like the big question, which is, was the move necessary, right? And look, Oscar comes in, $10 super chat. $10 super chat. I'll shut up for a second. He said, Oscar says, in my opinion, a big change doesn't signify panicking or using your get out of jail free card. Maybe Sark just really wanted Muschamp. The D was just as big of an issue as the Ole Miss, Vandy, Arkansas, and etc. Oscar, this is where it becomes this. Oscar, if you watch my show, I don't live in a world of absolutes, okay? Because I feel like when you live in a world of absolutes and you can't find a compromise anywhere, I think that's when you have a lot of arguments. That's where you have political debates and stuff like that. But I feel like there's somewhere where we can all compromise. Oscar, to your point, could you upgrade the defense based off of last year's results? There's an argument to be had for that, Oscar. Okay, here's your argument, and this is where I will support you in that argument. Okay, Mississippi State gave up 38 points in overtime, but gave up 38 points overall. Gave up 31 points against Vanderbilt. 35 points versus Georgia, 37 points versus Arkansas. So if you say to yourself, man, the offense started to come along right around that Mississippi State game, and they started to get better, but then there was a flip, and the issue was the defense, I can ride with that. I can 100% stay with that, Oscar, right? And if you want to say that Georgia was your tipping point. Like Georgia was it. Like, when you finally just had enough and you just said to yourself, like, I've had enough. And if Georgia, what they put on you, especially in the fourth quarter, if you say that was it, I have no problem with that. No problem with that. Got no problem with that. What's interesting, though, Oscar and everybody else, I don't feel like any of us walked out of the final game of the season, Texas A&M, and said to ourselves, you know what really was the biggest problem for this team this year? That damn defense. None of us said that. Now, do we have frustrations with the defense? Absolutely. None of us, me, you, any of us, we are. Well, guess what? If you think my trash is a take, my takes are trash, then how about this? You can just go home. There you go. But if you feel like, I don't think any of us ever said, hey, this defense has been the issue. What we said was the real issue, right? The real issue was the offense. But none of us, back to what I'm trying to say, none of us really liked, that this kind of prevent defense thing that they had. None of us understood why we're dropping Ant Hill into coverage. Makes no sense. We all understood. And one of the things that when you watch the show and we talked about it, was that at the end of the day, if you're an attacking defense, that's where Texas was at its best. When Texas pinned their ears back and decided, you know what, we're going to go straight after it. But then when we saw Texas just sit back and we saw crossing routes, and we're like, hey, man, is there a way? Is there a way to actually defend these crossing routes? That there was some things that we said to ourselves, okay, that could be better. This here could be way better than what it is, right? And so there is that frustrating part, but isn't it fascinating too, at the end of the day too, that this was, we thought going into the season, one of the best defenses that Texas has had in years. That literally was the thing that was everyone was talking about, right? But then, now all of a sudden it's like that this thing. So that's the thing, and we'll get back to this in a second. And by the way, if you're watching the show, if you just don't like what I'm saying, man, go to another channel. Seriously, why waste your energy on negativity? Just go to the channel that you like. Anyway, ATX Bakes, who here because what he likes. The get out of jail free card is if Sark hires an OC and the team still doesn't improve. Look how many times Lincoln Rod and Mike Leach changed DCs. Look, ATX Bakes, I somewhat agree, but I think you got to look at it from another perspective. This is why I don't love this move for Sark, because if you go ahead and get rid of your defensive coordinator and then it's not better, because now you're telling yourself it has to be better. What you're telling yourself is this thing now in 2026, if we are sitting here next year and Texas isn't in the playoffs, what's the thought process? No one's going to say, ATX Bakes, hey, well, Will Muschamp needs some time to develop this defense. What they're going to say is, this thing is problematic. Sark can't fix it. And I think it puts more pressure on him in 2026, because now we're looking at the defense and saying to ourselves, that side of the ball has to be substantially better. I don't think we walked out of this past season saying, man, that side of the ball really sucked. We said there was a stretch of it, but I think if we're being honest, if we're keeping in the buck, if you and I created a priority list and we said, hey, what's the thing that we feel like needs to improve the most? What would you have said when the season was over? What would you have said? You know what you would have said. You know what side of the ball you would have pointed to. And you would have pointed first at the offensive line. That's what you would have pointed to first. You would have said, because that's all we talked about. You would have said that is the first thing that needed to be improved. Then second, you probably would have said running backs, right? Right. And again, love the move. Was never really a huge fan of the initial hire, but I was definitely. But I'm a fan of the replacement hire. And it'd be nice if you just keep a running back for a while, but you had Stan Drayton, the Shard choice, Chad Scott, and now this person. Not to any fault of Sark's, Stan and Tashard went on to better things. I felt like Chad Scott was kind of a settling kind of thing. This one looks like more of an upgrade, so hopefully that's better. I think that probably bodes well for a Trey Wisner, coming back and everybody else in the room. And yes, Darren, yeah, man, haters gonna hate. It is what it is. I'm just like this though. If you're gonna hate, that's cool. You're gonna hate. Look, you're here for a reason, and people gotta hate. What Cat Williams said. People don't hate on people who don't have something, right? Nobody hates on a homeless person, right? No one's like, man, that homeless person thinks they're so good, right? So I get it. I just don't need almost cussed. I just don't need people coming into my chat, just disrupting our flow, just for no. So I'm like, hey, it's cool. I can make your life easy. I'll just block you. You can, and then you just have no choice. But what usually happens? They usually DM me like about a week or two later and then beg me to come back, or they create another profile and then they watch it that way. It is what it is, okay? Hey, man, y'all got a lot to say. I thought I had a lot to say, but y'all got a lot to say. So if y'all want to keep this thing going, we'll keep this thing going. First of all, Listos Verde, that's my Austin FC. We just signed a guy who scored 2 goals in like 30 games or something like that. But anyway, LaFoul regret now. No, Muschamp likes blitzing 3-4. News is Arch is taking less money. Sark going all in. Why would you get in the portal? Okay, there's a lot there. Let me try to unpack this. LaFoul regret. I don't think it's about that. I think it's more about the money as relates to LaFoul. And at the end of the day, Texas is making business choices, and so I don't think the money that he wanted was going to be there. And so because the money that he wasn't going to be there, I don't think the defensive coordinator makes a huge difference as far as where he is or where he is as far as that concerned. Yes, I've heard that Arch is taking less money, not just because of what today happened. The tricky part of that, and I just got to want to be a little respectful. Just remember that, you may not remember, but I can tell y'all that Quinn never took NIL money from Texas. His agent, Ron Slavin, created all of that for him. And so Arch takes NIL money from Texas. And so there had to be kind of a conversation of, hey, man, we need some help here because, we're not used to having to pay out this much for a QB, where our QB created their own deals. So that's where that whole thing comes about. Sark going all in, 100%, of course. What would you get in the portal? O-line, running backs. I'll start there. And look, now that you've got Muschamp there, you got to make sure you address what he wants as well on the defensive side of the ball. You got to give him the things that he feels like these guys are going to work well in my defense. So whatever he feels like he needs, especially linebackers, who the hell's left? Rodolfo, can you play a linebacker? Nah, you too much of a hater. So we can't have Rodolfo at linebacker. And then there's obviously a plan. Yes, there is a plan. And we'll find out a little bit more. We'll find out a little bit. Yes, I mean, start there and call me, tell me what his plan is. But you can start seeing the writing on the wall as he starts to kind of overhaul his staff. And the thing is, this is where, okay. And this, by the way, this is not a Muschamp we can get into the Muschamp thing in a second. But it's not even a Muschamp, is he or is he not thing. I guess, but for me is okay. But if you felt like the defense was the main issue and the main priority, well, damn it, man. Look, y'all, if y'all just want to make this a super chat show, then I'll just shut up. Is that a tech logo? Is that a tech logo? That looks like a tech logo? Okay, I'm gonna roll with this for a second. I was gonna wear like a red Christmas sweater for y'all. I was like, I had this really cool red Christmas sweater, and then I know y'all get like testy about stuff. So I was like, man, I ain't gonna wear this. Y'all gonna be all salty with me. That looks like tech though, doesn't it? Okay, but you're allowed for $10, you can have your opinions. The D coordinate change is completely separate change. He's not gonna fire the OC, but I'm sure he can also acknowledge that the OC has to improve. Now the panic move, I think it's a scheme move. Well, Chino, the problem is, when I say that, it's respectfully to you, Sark is the OC. Kyle Flood has the OC title. Sark is the OC. Sark is the play caller. So Sark is not going to fire himself. Will Sark add in a play caller? Probably not. Now, listen, if he does, then you know he was told to do that. But it's not about that. It's really your conversation, is more about the when you talk about Kyle Flood, you're basically just talking to offensive line. That's what you're talking about. Sark's the OC. He's a play caller. So that's a separate thing. So now, do you want to get rid of your offensive line coach? It's interesting because some would argue that, I think there's arguments here that someone argue, well, hell, if Pete K has to go, what the hell does that say for Kyle Flood? Right? I mean, the arguments can be made on both sides of the ball, right? You can say, well, this defense didn't play well down the stretch, and we can say that offensive line, outside of maybe Oklahoma, A&M, really never held up. And I say the outside, I'm really talking about the interior guys, right? So, but that's where it's interesting. And this is where it's like, is it a panic move? Because the question really becomes, did Sark address the right side of the ball? Now, if Sark feels like my offense is good going forward, and this is the thing that's holding us back, it's interesting because that wasn't the thing that we said holding us back to a couple of years ago. Now, if you want to say, don't forget that Washington playoff game, what Michael Penix did against this defense, I could rock with you. I could say, because Michael Penix hit God mode on the joystick, and the next thing you know, it was like bombs away. If you want to say, look at the secondary. Once you get past a Jahdae Barron or a Makuba, what about the secondary the other years? And I can say, hey, man, cannot argue with that. Because even if we pin it on Akina and say, hey, your secondary wasn't good, which, by the way, y'all heard me last week talking about Akina and the possibility of his future here at Texas, and I wasn't quite sure what that was going to look like going forward, right? Love you too, Sailor Joe. But you can still say and make a reasonable argument that this secondary for a lot of the years still wasn't that great under Pete K, right? Even though there was some success. So the question is, so on that note, I'm okay. If that's the argument, no problem. Won't get an argument from me. Won't get any pushback from me. At the end of the day, if Sark feels like Muschamp is the upgrade that he needs, then by all means, do it. Do it. I got no problem with that. Bring in a new defense. You probably have to bring in some new position coaches, more than likely, which would mean, because you got to think, you hire DC. Well, the DC is going to want to bring in some people that he rocks with. Some people speculated about Gideon coming back. I've heard different things, mixed things about that. So I'm waiting to see how that one unfolds. But at the end of the day, okay, he's going to bring in some couple of guys, which probably means, well, I mean, Akina's gone. We got to see what happens with Nansen. You know, the Nansen thing is an interesting component because Nansen, you would have thought could have been next in line, but he's not. So Muschamp coaches linebackers, Nansen coaches linebackers. What does that mean for him? Does Nansen move to another position? Does Muschamp say he doesn't have to worry about it? Just keep it there. Like that's an interesting one there. What else? What are they doing for Kenny Baker? Is Kenny Baker good to go? Is he straight? Or does Muschamp say, I got a defensive line coach that I feel like is going to work really well with me a little bit better, right? So there are some of those things that we know when we start talking, you know, it'd be interesting when we talk to Sark. It'll be interesting to see how much he talks about it today. Will he say, hey, I got a ton of change coming? Or he's going to say, nah, I'm good for right now. I'm fascinated why he's even having a press conference. Quite honest with you, they had a press release. Unless Will Muschamp is going to be there today, I'm fascinated as to what Sark has to say. I mean, Sark's never really struck me as I really like talking to the Austin media guy. He's like, man, I can't wait to go Friday morning. I can't wait to get a Kirk Bowles question. That doesn't seem like Sark. So I'm fascinated to see like what he wants to talk about today, and what that looks like. And Cheeto says, I know he's the OC. That's why he won't fire him. Just saying this could be a compartmentalized move. He knows he's got to improve his offensive scheme. Yeah. I mean, I guess, does he? I mean, I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but can you 100% say that Sark knows he has to improve his offensive scheme? Or can you say, because what we're seeing right now, is 3 guys have been fired and 2 of them have been on the defensive side of the ball. So how much is that? You know, how much of the scheme is I hired a running backs coach that when at the end of the day, he wasn't worth a damn. Sorry, Mr. Scott. I know you're probably packing right now. Sorry. He's like, damn, dude. I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't say it. Sark said it. He said it after one season that this was some BS. And Sark's only done that one other time, and that was with Andre Coleman. When Andre Coleman was the wide receivers coach, Sark was like, okay, cool. He's a Tom Herman carryover. We're going to keep him. And then after 1 year, he's like, nah, I'm good on that. The thing I give Sark credit on, I give my man credit. But sometimes when he sees that things ain't working, he's willing to make a change on that. But is he going to say my offensive things need to change? I don't know. I go back to the big question. Was it a panic move? I don't think it was a panic move. Okay. Well, if we see 2 or 3 more firings, by the way, then I'll switch it. I see it right now as Sark saying I need to upgrade my defense. I see it right now as Sark saying I need a defense that I feel like is going to be better in the SEC. And if you want to say, look, at the end of the day, there's no way that our defense should be struggling against Mississippi State, struggling against Vanderbilt, struggling against Arkansas, like just unable to seemingly stop them, and getting our asses kicked against Georgia. And Sark is saying, at the end of the day, the way we closed out the season, even though we only had 1 loss, because the performance against Ohio State wasn't enough for me. And hell, if he wants to say we gave up 29 points against Florida, no problem. That makes sense. 29 points against a Florida team that we would consider to be hot garbage. You know why they were hot garbage? Because they fired their coach. And you don't fire your coach in the middle of the season if you think your team is good. You fire your coach in the middle of the season because you think your team is hot garbage. So you want to say 29 points against Florida on the road. You want to say 38 points. You want to say Vanderbilt gets 31. Georgia gets 35. Arkansas gets 37. Logically, I got it. I got it. And you want to say that's the thing that you guys need to do? Sure. But I will say this. If you Sark, please don't feel like you're done. Because, yeah, you could go ahead. The defensive change is not a problem. But we know the offense was the problem for the majority of the season. Now, you feel like you got it, cool. But we know you got to go in the portal and get offensive linemen. You got to. We know that you got to get some running backs. And I don't want to, yes, you've got Wisner, cool. Who else you got? You got to get some proven guys. And guess what? You might want to go ahead and add in another receiver or two. Now, you've got plenty of time, you got plenty of money, got plenty of room, got plenty of scholarship space. This should be one of the most competitive camps in 2026. This should be one of the most competitive. And Texas should be a place where, yes, we know you want to develop. And you can say you're a young team, right? But at the end of the day, you don't have to be a young team. Young is a choice. You don't have to be. You are, but you don't have to be. What you can be is a team that has older veterans that you get through the transfer portal and that you feel good about your culture. You're not worrying like, oh, people are going to come in and disrupt our culture. If your culture is strong enough, people understand they understand how to fall in line. I've used this analogy before. You go to somebody's house and they'll tell you, hey, take your shoes off at the door. You understand the rules have been set. When people come in out the transfer portal, you tell them, take your shoes off at the door. This is what we do. This is what we don't do. This is our expectations of you. And if you mess it up, you out, and we don't care. So I'm with that. But I do believe, trust me, I do believe, and I'll say this does add a little bit more pressure on him in 2026. It does. Because at the end of the day, all the moves you're making are saying we're making these moves to get back to the playoffs. All the moves you're making is saying we're trying to get back to the playoffs. And so if those moves don't work, there's gonna be some questions that have to be answered. It's not by Anwar, it's not by Kirk, it's not by Terry Middleton or CJ or anybody like that. It's going to be by the powers that be. The same people, by the way, who you sat down with after the season and they asked you, what are you going to do to make this team better to get us back to where we need to be? Because, by the way, I can tell you that there were some people who made the trip to that Georgia game who were very powerful, influential people, and they were not happy. They were not happy with those results. There's some people who I know were really pissed off about that. So if everything is that, then you got to get back. If you're making the necessary moves to get back, so be it. Go for it. But I'm telling you, 2026, it's not a hot seat, not going anything crazy like that. But it is this, it's more intensity, it's more pressure. And look, Stark's going to speak at 11:15, and then making sure you come back for the noon show. Because when you come back for the noon show, we'll have a whole recap of what Sark said. Make sure that let me know in the chat, in the comments. Do you feel like Sark made a panic move? Do you feel like this was just an instant upgrade that needed to occur? Let me know what you think. I'll be back. Hey, listen, remember I always say, live each day like it's your last, because one day it will be. So go out and have a great day. Have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself. Hell, there's some coaches who thought they were living their best life, and they packing up and they're heading home. So go out there and do something nice and special for yourself, because you absolutely